Nvidia stock is up around 3,500% in the last 5 years and about 170% in the last year. The share price is currently sitting at $131 post-split, and the company is now valued at $3.2 trillion. That's roughly the same as Apple and Microsoft, so it's now one of the most valuable companies in the world. Since its IPO, the stock has gone up over 300,000%, and to put that into perspective, if you invested $1,000 at their IPO, you would have over $3 million today. The run that this stock has had is absolutely incredible, and today we're going to talk about the good, the bad, how I personally missed the boat on Nvidia, and what I think the share price could do in the future. If you're new to the channel, my name is Sheldon, and I've been actively managing my own stock portfolio for over 4.5 years now, and I make YouTube videos talking about stocks. If you're interested in staying updated and learning about the stock market, check out some of the other videos on my channel, and let's build our portfolios together. But let's get right into it, and I want to give a brief overview of Nvidia as a company. So Nvidia is essentially one of the biggest computer hardware manufacturers in the world. And with the explosion of AI and the need for compute power to train large language models, Nvidia was essentially positioned perfectly to be the hardware supplier for all these data centers that are training AI. And basically every single big company that is investing in AI is a customer of Nvidia and using their products. And they obviously do a lot more than that, but to sum it up quickly, they are a leading company in the world when it comes to the design and manufacturing of computer hardware products. But I want to start by talking about some of the potential reasons for a bear case when it comes to Nvidia and the reason that you might see some selling pressure on the stock. So there's a few things to touch on here, but the first thing I want to talk about is obviously valuation. Anytime a stock climbs and the PE starts to creep up, you're going to get people saying that the stock is overvalued, and your job as an investor is to decide if you think the company deserves the multiple it currently has. And a lot of these high growth companies with lots of hype are going to command a higher valuation multiple, and that's just the way it is. And later in the video, we'll get into the reasons why I think Nvidia might actually justify it. So another potentially bearish thing that you'll see people saying about Nvidia is that because they've done such a good job growing their revenues and they've had crazy growth rates over the last couple of years, the expectation to continue that can also hurt the stock price, because if the demand starts to go down for a lot of the chips because companies already have them, and companies aren't going to need to continue to buy chips every single year. So if the demand goes down and their growth rates go down, that could definitely not be good for the stock price. And some people also don't like to buy at the top, which I get. Like if you look at this 5-year chart, you just people that don't know a lot about investing will look at the chart and say they've already really missed the boat when it comes to all the gains that you can get in the stock. And I might kind of agree with that, to be honest. And I'm also personally not a huge fan of buying at all-time highs. But I can also see if you're really bullish on the stock and you believe in it for the long term, then it could still be worth it to buy at an all-time high. But as the stock price continues to creep up, and if you've been watching Nvidia, it kind of seems like it's just up every single day. As it continues to hit new all-time highs, the amount of short sellers in the stock also goes up. So these are just a few things to keep in mind that are potentially bearish when it comes to Nvidia. And I also think one thing that could be really bad for the stock is if we go into a bigger market crash. Like if the NASDAQ kind of creeps back down to 15,000, I definitely think Nvidia is probably coming with it, because it is one of those hyped stocks in the market and because it's one of the most talked about stocks in the market. If the broader market has a crash, Nvidia is definitely going to follow that, along with all the other highly valued stocks in the market like Palantir, Meta, Google. They're all going to crash, and Nvidia is definitely going to join them. So it's just something to keep in mind. If the broader market crashes, these stocks that trade at a super high PE are definitely going to come down with it. And I'm personally not bearish on Nvidia. This is me just trying to put a bear case together to try and see both sides. But let's take a look at the good things. And this video could definitely be an hour if we go over all of them. So I narrowed it down, but let's get into it. So the first thing is market share. Nvidia is the undisputed AI leader when it comes to this. And, they have 90% market share in data center GPUs, which is absolutely crazy when you really think about that. They have a few competitors like AMD and Intel, but, even AMD stock is trading at a much higher valuation when it comes to PE ratio than Nvidia. Just like they were positioned perfectly for generative AI, if we ever actually created artificial general intelligence and created some type of sentient computer, that would most likely be running on AI or on Nvidia chips. And, I can't imagine what would happen to the valuation of the company if that ever happened. But when you have something that has 90% market share in literally any sector, that company is pretty safe and there's a big moat around that business. And if you take a look at some of their customers, like it's all the biggest tech companies in the world. Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, Alphabet. And if you talk about any of the cloud platforms like AWS, GCP or Azure, like all their data centers run on NVIDIA chips. And if we take a further look at their financials, it's, like I said, a $3 trillion company, which is huge. For some reason, I don't really know why they did this, but they started paying a really, really small dividend. I guess they just have a lot of money that they might not know what to do with, or maybe there's a story behind that. I'm not sure. But the profit margin here of 53%, like, are you kidding me? A $3 trillion company with a 53% profit margin? That's crazy, actually. And quarterly revenue growth year over year of 262% and quarterly earnings growth of over 600%. Like, these numbers are absolutely crazy. And, you start to look at these financials and you can understand why the stock has gone on the run it has. You can also look at the amount of debt they have. For a company that's worth $3 trillion, they only have $11 billion in debt. And obviously, with the amount of cash that they have, they could pay off their debt 3 times over if they just snapped their fingers and if they wanted to. And if we take a look at their financial graph here, you can see when the hype train for generative AI really started and when they really started to fulfill a lot of those contracts from those big customers. And it's not just their revenue that's continued to grow, but their earnings has also started to go up relatively exponentially. And I think it was also a pretty smart move by the company to do a 10-for-1 split. It was trading at a pretty high price, like $1,000. Not a lot of people have over $1,000 to just throw into one stock. So you do a 10-for-1 split and cut the stock price to now it's only $131. That allows a lot of the smaller retail investors like me and like probably a lot of you guys watching this video to be able to start to build out an Nvidia position. And not only that, but I mean, I could really go on forever here, but they're an international company. It's not just like they're supplying chips to the United States here. They supply worldwide. They have top-of-the-line manufacturing facilities, and, there's a million good things that you could say about NVIDIA. So I also want to talk about how I used to be a shareholder of NVIDIA, and I think it's a good lesson to share because I could have made a lot of money if I would have just held my shares. I would have been up thousands of dollars, but to anybody just starting in the market, you have to realize and you have to know that hindsight is 20/20 and you're going to miss some opportunities. That's just the way it is. It was actually one of the first stocks I ever bought in January of 2020, somewhere around there. I bought one share and then, it eventually ran up a little bit and then they did a 4-for-1 stock split a couple years ago. And I ended up selling the shares after they did the stock split and it continued to run up. And I still doubled what I put into the stock, so I still made money. But obviously, if I would have held, I would be up a lot more right now. And yeah, like I said, the key takeaway is that hindsight is 20/20. There's always going to be missed opportunities in the market. All you can do is try to learn from them. Don't get discouraged because that's what's going to cause you to sell all your stocks. Just keep trying to learn, stay disciplined, keep investing, and eventually you will get lucky and you will see some stocks that have crazy good returns. And for me personally, right now, it doesn't make sense to buy back into NVIDIA. I have a lot of tech stocks and I'm weighted pretty heavily already on a couple AI plays. So it just doesn't make sense. But, if I didn't have some of these stocks in here and, for some of you guys, I think it could be a good investment for the next few years. If your portfolio obviously isn't as heavily weighted on AI already as mine, I don't need another AI stock, but maybe some of you guys out there don't have anything and you want to give some exposure for your portfolio into the AI world. I do think that it could be a good idea. One word of caution that I would give to anybody that's thinking about buying NVIDIA stock right now is this old Warren Buffett quote to be fearful when others are greedy and be greedy only when others are fearful. You know, the stock has gone up a lot. And a lot of the bulls are saying that, you know, it's going to continue to go up. And next thing you know, we're going to see it at $200, $300, $400 for the stock price again. But when you see shares and they have runs like Nvidia has had in the last few years, typically you are too late, I'm sorry to say. But you want to be in early on a lot of these stocks, and buying in now, you know, you could still see some returns, but I really don't think you're going to see the type of returns that they've already seen. But, you know, give it some thought before you buy in, do your research, do your due diligence, and then trust your gut when it comes to if you want to buy the stock or not. But I'd like to hear what you guys think of the stock, especially post-split. So drop a comment below and let me know what your opinion is. If you got any value out of the video, consider dropping a like and subscribing. Let me know if you have any suggestions, feedback, or any specific stocks that you want to see a video on. I wish everybody the best of luck on their investment journey. Peace.